Prospect number 5, I don't know that he could be a whole lot different than Jalen Wright. And this is the kind of like Braelon Allen is the guy that I historically would have been higher on than most. I'm a sucker for this type of prospect. He does seem like somebody to me that if everything goes right, could be over 300 touches. How do you look at Braelon Allen?
I think that's the right way to look at it for sure. I'll say this, he probably objectively has the best sort of production related, age adjusted production related metrics in the model. And that's because when Braelon Allen came out of high school, he left high school a year early. He went to Wisconsin and he was recruited as a defensive back, kind of safety, maybe linebacker hybrid. But then he decided to play running back, and he then goes to and he plays running back year 1 at 17 years old. And he has a pretty productive season at Wisconsin, which is crazy because like who in there, like it just shows you how talented this guy is as an athlete, that he gets recruited as a defensive player. And then he enters Wisconsin, a program that has given us so many NFL caliber running backs over the last 10, 15 years. And he just goes and he plays well. Like he's productive immediately at 17 years old. So his breakout score is the best in the class because he was 17 freaking years old doing things on a football field at Wisconsin, right? The problem though is his production didn't get that much better as his career went on at Wisconsin. And then the other problem I have, he's 5'11", 235, like you said. I mean, like he has the prototypical size to just shoulder a massive, massive workload if a team is willing to give it to him. The problem though is if you look at how he force missed tackles, it was below average in this class. And you have to wonder, why is it happening? And then you read scouting reports from people who are really dissecting the film a little bit more than I am. And a lot of them are saying that he just doesn't use his size the way that you would want a 235-pound back to use their size, right? And so I think the fear with him is, so his top comp in my model, like the objective comp, is James Conner. You know, that like where James Conner's had a great fantasy career. I think that if anyone were to look at James Conner and say like you're an elite running back, that'd be kind of silly. It's just that he's found the right spots throughout his career to really just be the solo guy. And he's just solid, right? Like he's a reliable, strong running back and catch some passes out of the backfield. I think Braelon Allen's probably not as good of a pass catcher, but he could end up being sort of that like reliable piece. But I think that the fear is that Braelon Allen goes down the path of AJ Dillon, where, you know, it's this bigger body guy who, you know, at times we've seen those moments of him really using, you know, his body the way that you would think he would, and he probably should. But, you know, the whole package isn't necessarily there. And I think that Braelon Allen might get typecasted as being just an early down back. And that's a really big problem for his fantasy value.
I will say, like, and this might be something where I'm just totally wrong, but you've mentioned all the reasons to really value age. And I like, it blows my mind just having had a couple of 17-year-olds and having a 14-year-old now, of a 17-year-old leaving school early to go play Division I football in the Big Ten and rushing for 1,200 yards.
Yeah.
Like, that is incredible. And it like, you can see it now because he turned 20 in 2024.
Yeah.
He doesn't even turn 21 until the year 2025. And so I wonder, like, that young age, does it also give more hope for, we talk about he's not as good a pass catcher as James Conner. I saw some things from James Conner the last year and a half catching the ball in Arizona that I don't think he had in Pittsburgh. He's just really looked good as a pass catcher, or he doesn't necessarily use his body the right way. Does the young age give you any more of a hope that he improves on some of those things in the NFL?
Yeah, I think for sure. And like, we can't discount too. And this is where, like, you know, again, going back to like the way that people view someone like me who's like modeling this stuff, and they think that I'm like so strict in the way that I'm looking at these prospects and whatnot, and that I can't stray away from what the model's saying. That's not it at all. This is just a guide more than anything else to make sure that I'm not missing something obvious and such. I think that more subjectively, we can't totally discount just things that we aren't able to measure or see. And that's like, this is going to sound kind of lame, but like work ethic, right? Like James Conner overcame something that the majority of people will never understand, right? With his cancer diagnosis and doing what he did there. I'm sure that changed him as a human to be built different, if you will. Right. And so I do think that like a guy like Conner because look, I graduated from Pitt. I watched James Conner in college like you wouldn't believe, and I did not expect him to have the career that he had and has had in the NFL, right? And I think there are just players. Kyron Williams, another one, where Kyron Williams from year 1 to year 2 clearly improved as a player, or even from what we saw in college to what we saw then in year 2. It's not just, oh, Sean McVay gave him more work. It's no, we got to, can we just give the running back some credit for working hard and doing really well and getting better, right? So I think any of these players, you can make a blanket statement and say all of them can improve. I think that, just like as a human, we can sit here and say, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like, where were you at 20 versus where were you at 23? And you learn a lot during that time period. And you can understand why a guy like Allen would then also maybe learn a lot, because it's not like he's had the same experience in college and the same amount of years under a coaching staff to really fine tune his game. So yeah, I mean, I think that you should use age to your advantage a little bit whenever you're analyzing these guys, because it is important.
I will say, just for the record, I was still pretty much an idiot at 23. It took several more years than that for me. Is it fair to say, we'll finish up here? Well, like we talked about everybody's upside. Braelon Allen's upside feels to me like the guy who has like a top 8 fantasy season, and half of the fantasy community is still saying he's not any good.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I also think it could go in a way of us know. Part of the problem with Braelon Allen analytically is that he didn't test, right? Like we don't know how fast he is, because he said that he had this lingering high ankle or something that he just didn't want to mess with it or whatever. If we knew what his weight adjusted 40 time was, I'm thinking more of like the dynasty market and how the dynasty market would react. Let's say that he ran like a 4.5 even at that size. I think that a lot of people would just be in on Allen, and that would give him nice insulation from year 1 to year 2 in the NFL in terms of his overall value in the market. I could also see, though, if he has a big season, I could see it being, he didn't play running back, but I could see it being sort of like a Chase Claypool situation of like, the community just being totally split, between these guys who are just aggressively going after him and then managers who are just not going after him whatsoever. Because let's be honest, a lot of people just stick to their priors, and if you there's a lot of people who are Braelon Allen people right now. And if you're a Braelon Allen person entering year 1 and he has a good year 1, you're going to be even more of a Braelon Allen person. And if you're not a Braelon Allen person and he has a good year 1, you're probably still not going to be that big of a Braelon Allen person, because it's always in the back of your mind of like where he came from and the kind of game he has and all that kind of stuff. So I do think his ceiling is there. Like I think Braelon Allen hypothetically has just as high of a ceiling as maybe anyone other than like a Jonathan Brooks in the class.
Right.
But I do think that the chance of that ceiling hitting is even lower than a guy like Trey Benson.